The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. The best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
This is the best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun on AM 950. Tonight we're going to play parts of interviews from 3 different guests. We've had some amazing people appear on the show, and we think that they should be heard from again. Enjoy the show. Tonight we are talking with author and demon hunter Joseph Stewart. We're talking about his book, Demons, A Secular Look. I keep wanting to call it a new book, but it is absolutely not a new book. It's just taken me years to get back in touch with Joe. So, but we got you now, Joe. So that's something. So I got a question from the chat room, and Kyle asked you the question: would you speak about the rules of demon interaction? I've heard that they are allowed to fool people, but there is a line that they aren't allowed to cross. What is that line?
Not true. They can do whatever they want. There's no rules.
I mean, why? I mean, it makes sense that there wouldn't be rules. Otherwise, there. I mean, it would be. It's kind of a romanticized view, I think, of demons in a way, right? That like vampires, like they can't do certain things. They have to be invited in. Is that part true though? Like demons need to be invited in, or do they literally just prey on anybody?
Demons prey on anybody. They're just like predators in the sense of looking for the weak and the sick. People with that are down and out. Bad addictions, alcoholism, that type of thing. You name it. They're always out there looking for somebody. So, and yes, you can invite them in, but you don't have to invite them in to get demons. Right.
It seems like, as you had said early in the program, they're going to focus on your weakness, right? That's what they hunger, that's what they crave, right?
Correct.
So now I got questions myself that are probably going to be, you're probably going to be like, wow, Greg, this isn't a great interview. I answer these things all the time. But I really feel like you're seeing something that I think a lot of other people who I talk to about demons, I don't think they see. And I'm curious about like what some of these situations, if you don't mind me asking some very parochial questions here tonight. But first of all, you're pinned by one, as you said in the last segment. What do these things look like?
Whatever your nightmare dreams are, they're basically, you can't see their form because of the realm that they exist in. So basically, it's a hallucination. You're seeing what is your greatest fear or your greatest desire. They can make it either way that they can use to manipulate you.
Gosh, is there a way to know that it's a demon? I mean, it sounds silly to say, but I mean, boy, they could, if that's the case, that they can be around you all the time without you knowing, basically.
Yes.
I mean, I suppose. Perhaps you tell me
they coexist with us is the best way to say it.
They coexist with us, great. And then, I mean, I suppose once they start, like, especially the ones who look like your greatest fantasies or whatever else, once they start luring you into doubting your moral compass or whatever else, I suppose that could be a sign that something's not right here.
Yeah, you'll know eventually, because it may start off very nice and pleasant and promise you the moon. And usually they attack real young people, they're having a hard time in life, and they will be your best pal, and eventually they will turn on you.
Sure.
They're kind of I guess you would call them like an intangible, non-human entity, and they're driven by an egomania, extreme arrogance, and Machiavellian behavior. They're very manipulative.
What is, I mean, the concept of Satan as far as a head of evil, a head of demons, is that part of all this, or is that something that is not even considered?
I guess you can look at them like any kind of predator, I mean, they're feeding on us.
Yeah.
They're feeding on our energies and things. And it's very important to create that emotion of fear. And with the sex demons, with sex, all that energy there. And that's what they're doing. They just keep feeding off from us.
The demons are, they're intelligent. I get that. I understand that. But would you say their need for chaos, their need to do what they do to people, is that no different than, say, the need of what a piranha needs to do, a need of what a shark or a tiger or a lion, that this is just in their DNA, so to speak, and that this is what they do? There's no demons that's going to turn and become good or anything like that. This is what they are. This is what their existence is for.
This is their nature. Yes, this is their nature. The one thing about them is and the reason I called the book A Secular Look was because if you start viewing the demons with the blinders of a religion, with their dogma, there's a lot of things that you're not going to see and going to omit that could get you killed. So you need to be open-minded and take it out of all that context and look at it for what it really, truly is.
I think that's very smart, and that's kind of what I was getting at for sure when I was asking about like the exorcism and stuff. And growing up Catholic myself, I mean, I find that all that stuff so fascinating, like the Vatican and how all that works. But I also need, and I'm learning more and more as time goes on, that there is such a bigger view to just everything in general. This is not meant to put off any Catholics or anything. I'm not having to go at any religion. But when you're looking at something like this, you're going to learn real fast, I'm sure, Joe, that if you're just going to focus on any one religion, you're going to find yourself in a heap of trouble.
Correct. And I work in all religions. I work with cultures that don't have any religions that are afflicted by the demons. So.
You said that you can call them in, and that's what can take care of them. But you mentioned you travel. How much do you do of that now? Do you still go out and travel to locations, or is it mainly more remote?
Yes. I travel usually 1 or 2 states over sometimes, depending. But a lot of it is in the bigger cities, like Grand Rapids here or Detroit especially. Mm-hmm. I mean, I got 6 new cases already, and this weekend I'll be going to Hazel Park, which is North Detroit, and Pontiac, which is also kind of north of Detroit. Both Saturday and Sunday to work these cases.
How do you keep up with it? I mean, you have to be exhausted a lot.
I guess I'm in my stride. I've been doing it for a lot of years. So just knowing what we need to do and, dotting our I's and crossing our T's and being prepared for anything.
And you really do. You have to be absolutely ready for anything. Yeah.
You got to bring your A game every time.
Every time. There's no room for error.
No, because what they do is they're very masters of, of distraction. If you read that Tennessee case, you'll see how they were distracting people from their task, as well as the Ypsilanti case. You'll also show where it stops the people from doing their exorcism by distracting them with a painting. I think it was the picture of a demon, a painting everybody was fascinated with.
And thank you for telling me how that's pronounced. I had been looking at that, and I was like, I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, we have a lot of Indian names around here.
So, and this is the thing, folks. If you're looking for a read, and this is also I've read like I forget the name of the book off the top of my head, but it's about Ed and Lorraine Warren, and they're talking about their cases and stuff. This is if you're looking for a read like that to understand what happens in these actual cases. This is why this book is really interesting and really good, because, I mean, that's what I like to read. I like to, it sounds really kind of lame actually saying it out loud, because sometimes you read this stuff and you do get scared, and that's kind of the interesting, dare I say, fun part of it, but there's nothing fun about what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, and I feel
really.
bad. I feel bad about that because it's not it's his education, not entertainment, but it's still like this is like you get scared by watching The Exorcist. Well, this is what's really going on, and like you said, the way of taking the focus off of one thing and putting it to something else, to kind of take away the attention. And I've seen that also as a paranormal investigator. I've seen that too, just in cases, not demonic by any stretch of the imagination, but I've seen that. And you look back later and you're like, oh my gosh, I totally fell into it. I mean, do you run into that? Are you really good now that you pick up on that right away?
Yeah, I mean, I did ghost hunting for, over 40 years. I started back in the 60s when it wasn't popular.
Yeah.
Hans Holzer, which, Dave Schrader had that show about.
Yeah.
I studied a lot of him in the early days. And I'm sure I ran into demons. Now I look back at some of these cases. I know I have, but they don't want you to know about them. If you don't know about them, they can do anything that they want. And
you'll be none the wiser.
That's correct. That's how they work.
Absolutely. So tell me about, kind of veering off a little bit, tell me about what paranormal investigations was like in the 60s. What were you doing? How did that work?
Well, we didn't have all the equipment that you have today. Used a reel-to-reel tape recorder.
Yep.
They made smaller ones you could take into the field. It's, investigating, getting the information, doing historical investigations, taking good notes, having experiences in that, 35 millimeter photography. We didn't know much about EVPs then, but occasionally you could hear something, on the recorders. And you just tried to help the people as best that you could, not like you can today with all this technology now. It makes it so much easier, to do it.
Right. I mean, do you feel like the technology is good, or do you think? You mentioned that you think that it's gotten a lot better to help people. So it's the equipment and stuff seems to be kind of a positive for you.
Well, it can be a positive. I mean, I prefer using a good psychic.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's some out there that just can really connect to that world and what they're saying. And believe me, I've done hundreds and hundreds of hours of EVP work and stuff. And it's just a lot easier to use a psychic and tune in really quick to what's going on.
I have a couple reel-to-reel players that and recorders that I take out on occasion because for that very same reason, I like to sometimes record onto analog opposed to digital and see what I can get. And it's really kind of cool.
Except that if you took 2 hours recording, it's going to take you 2 hours to download it into your system.
I know.
Yeah. I've been there.
I know. And the fact, too, I don't want to reuse the audio tape either because I'm afraid of bleed through and all that stuff. So, yeah. No.
But you get your best EVPs in the analog.
And that's why I say once in a while I bring it out there.
It's a pain.
So when was it then that you're doing all of this investigation and stuff? And Hans Holzer, absolutely. I'm just, as you may or may not know, we just did an event with Dave Schrader. We talked a lot about Holzer files, and I've got a lot of his books that I've been reading as well. When was it for you that demons started to come into the picture?
2009, I was doing a haunted house, and it was revealed later on that a woman was being basically raped by a demon. She was Catholic, and I didn't believe in demons, but I knew that ghosts can get very feisty and nasty, depending on how they are in life. That's the way they are in death.
Yeah.
And so that's what I thought it was, and then it got revealed to me when I went and investigated the previous house that she lived in. That was an incubus that was actually attacking her, and I did not believe it up to that point. And then it was face to face with it, and then I had to believe it.
Was it at that point that you decided that I need to play a role into helping people with that? Okay. No,
it wasn't like that at all. A friend of mine who was the woman's boyfriend, this thing he was defying it, trying to protect her, and it was literally eating him away. He was almost like a Holocaust victim, and it was going to
Wow.
kill him. And so I knew it existed, and I had to figure out, how do you fight something like this? And, you go to like the internet and you start looking, and then you say, anybody can say anything out here. So I got to know if it's real or not, because I can get killed out here doing this.
Absolutely. You are listening to the best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. Remember, you can hear full past episodes, see upcoming events, and order books of the authors we have on the show by going to ghostboxradio.com. Don't forget to like us over on Facebook. Look us up at GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. And finally, please consider supporting me on Patreon. We have a special, unique audio content that you'll not find anywhere else, plus special episodes. On Patreon, you can find me as GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We'll be back with another guest after the break. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
The best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
Did any of you watch or pick up on what was happening with this congressional hearing today that was all about information that had been kind of kept away from Congress regarding UAPs and regarding everything that's around it? Because the reason I ask, because we do have Erica on, and we're going to break this down with her right now, but I'm also really hoping that some of you will include your questions as well. You can do so in the chat. You just leave it, if you're watching us on Facebook, just leave it in the chat. We'll ask the questions. Erica can do her best to answer them. We just want to have a conversation about this. And Erica, I guess let's just be very, very generalized here. What did you think today? What did you think of today?
It was very interesting to me, and I want to just go back and clarify. The Nimitz Tic Tac encounter was 2004.
Okay.
And so I just want to clarify that. But it was interesting because when I was watching, I think we're excited because we think that this is another moment in time where we could peek behind the veil and where we could potentially be told that there is extraterrestrial life or there's some other life form interacting with us. And today, when I watched the hearing and I saw specific people, Graves, Fravor, Grush, there, and they were flanked by a crew of people, Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, who have repeatedly over the years offered unsubstantiated claims about a lot of different things, objects, ranches, people. That was a red flag for me. It was also a red flag for me when Grush, who had mentioned, on different news reports that he had seen, dead bodies, aliens, all of these things, crash retrievals. And yet today, when he was under oath, he didn't divulge the information that he has divulged on the press, which is a huge red flag. That should be a red flag to all of us. Here you've got somebody who is claiming to be a whistleblower, and yet there they are in front of Congress, this committee, and they're in front of the world, and they're claiming that they are so victimized, they've been threatened, and they are protected by the Whistleblower Act, and then they're not going to disclose what they did to the media. That's to me, that should be reason enough to not really take anything he's saying seriously, and people need to question that. I also, like I said, found it disconcerting to see two people, I'll say it again, I just said this, but George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, who have promoted fictitious stories like the Bob Lazar story, like Skinwalker Ranch. That doesn't send a good message out to the people of the world who truly care about doing good research and about finding something incredible.
When it comes to Grush and his inability to get into too much detail during the hearing, but as mentioned, that those details are much more available when he wasn't under oath. And I guess my point I'm trying to get at is, do you think that's simply because he was under oath?
Well, I definitely, yes, I do. it's a tough thing to go under oath and lie.
Yeah.
And I think that they were, obviously they skirted the issues, and I think it's pretty bad. Like I said, when you can go out to News Nation and different media sources and promote wild claims, and then you have the attention of the nation. You've got it. Well, some people who are concerned with the subject, right. and you've got this is your chance to talk about this and lay it out, and you've laid out the same old stuff that we've heard before. So I think that was a definite fail in that regard.
What would the point be of doing and having this hearing? Because the point that we're being told about is that that government is being kept in the dark, Congress in particular being kept in the dark about this information. That there is that they didn't feel, and correct me if I'm wrong here, like Grush was saying that they didn't feel like that they could be transparent about what they saw without getting some sort of retaliation of some kind from either their peers in the military or their commanding officers. So, if they're not talking about what's really happening, they're just doing broad brushstrokes. What would the purpose be of having a hearing like this to begin with?
Well, I think it's. I would imagine it's a bit of grandstanding. I believe it's a bit of political theater. Yeah. I find that when you're looking at the overall theme of Jeremy Corbell, it's weaponize, weaponize, weaponize. We're hearing that a lot, in the media with regard to sowing discontent and distrust in our government, which is interesting. But I also want to say that it was very wonderful to see a bipartisan effort where you had both sides that were being respectful of each other and, wanting to ask questions and wanting to get people on the record to make their claims or run away from the claims that they've made. So I think that was a very important thing today in that regard.
And that's the part that I do keep going back to in my mind is that, I've been watching the coverage all day when, like on different news outlets, when people from Congress are being interviewed about it, and they'll have like a Democrat, a Republican, they're basically, arm in arm. They're really excited that they're doing this. It's bipartisan, but you still having Corbell, excuse me. He's doing, he's doing this weaponized stuff. It just seems kind of anachronistic that, these two things are kind of go against each other. And in my mind, the weaponization claims and then the bipartisanship. Do you think that there's people in Congress who are not fully understanding what's happening here?
Yes. Yes, I do. And it's to be fair, there are a lot of nuances to this subject. This isn't something that you go in and you read a little briefing by Corbell or Knapp and then, oh, okay. And granted, I will say I'm the first person to admit that I did that. That was when I came into this subject. I'd been reading books my whole life, and I didn't have the skill set or the knowledge when I became a public figure in the subject to really understand the layers of all of this. And that's something that clearly, I don't believe people are skilled in knowing, and they're hearing, things from people that are questionable, and they might believe that. And it would be really great if some of these people could reach out to people like myself or people like other researchers that have really looked behind the scenes, and hopefully their aides are doing that behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think, it feels like a little bit that like people like Grush is kind of banking on perhaps them not looking too far behind the scenes, where if you're just going off of what's being presented at the hearing just by face value, there's a lot of interesting things there. And, probably one of the things that is, in my mind, the most interesting is he had interviewed officials who had direct knowledge of aircraft with non-human origins and that so-called biologics were recovered from some craft. You know, that's the golden ticket, isn't it? That's what people want to hear. But
you know, it is, and I just have to like hold this up because I mean, I've got, you know, like I said, I've got a huge collection, and I go back through some of these periodicals and you know, research papers, and there's always been the myth about UFOs landing. I mean, this is Popular Mechanics, May 2021. When UFOs land, startling physical evidence they can't explain away. You know, I mean, this has been the narrative, yet nobody has actually proven that we are being visited by extraterrestrials, and today, or some unknown entity. And yet today we saw 3 men who I will say I have to respect their military service. Mm-hmm. That is really, you know, that is very admirable. But at the end of the day, where's the proof? Why go through all this when you are protected under the whistleblower status and you're not providing things? That's, I'm sure, to people that have invested a lot of time and effort into researching the subject, or people that care about it and think it's fun, we're probably very disappointed today by what took place.
We're talking with Erica Lukes. We've seen her on so many programs talking about UFOs, UAPs. We're talking about the congressional hearing today. I would be very interested, anybody who is listening, put a comment in the comment section of if you're streaming this, and let us know your thoughts. I'd be very interested to know what people thought, even if you didn't watch the whole thing, if you read an article, if you just were just taking part in some way, you're not totally invested, but you knew what is happening. Would love to know your thoughts. Please put it down there so we could read those. But, you know, I think the one thing that I found that struck me when I was watching it this morning, and I've seen it commented on in different news sources, was a lot of like Grush in particular. He told a lot of what other people had experienced, not necessarily completely what he's experienced. It seemed to be a lot of like secondhand news, but they weren't there to actually speak at this forum either.
Right. That was all he has to offer, you know, is secondhand information. And I think that several major, you know, media outlets picked that up. I think most people that are logical could pick that up and just say, wait a minute, here's this big whistleblower testimony and it's all secondhand information.
Yeah, it really did seem that way. And you are right. I mean, of course you're right. You know what you're talking about far more than I do. I got the date wrong of the Tic Tac video from 2004. There was another one, though, from 2017, wasn't there, though, that was released?
Well, 2014, 2015.
Okay.
That was the Graves story. So, yep, I mean, it is interesting.
The reason why I ask that, why I bring that up, and this is going to sound, you know, like I said to you before the show, sometimes the show can be a bit, you know, amateur hour AM over here. But when the thing that really struck me, and I can't remember who was being interviewed, but he had said something about where everyone was saying that some of these craft were going thousands of miles an hour. That he said in one of the one of the videos, and I don't think it was the 2004 one. I could be wrong. I don't think it was a Tic Tac one, but it was actually like 40 miles an hour. That it wasn't going very fast at all.
You know, there have been different accounts of that and people that have researched that. I think Mick West has done a really good job at talking about some of that. And so, I mean, those things can be argued. And again, like where is the information backing up their claims? Yeah.
Well, absolutely.
You know, that's just their claim. You know, they should have all sorts of things other than George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell's statements that were submitted. You know, it's show us the evidence. The burden of proof is on the claimant. You know, and so far they have not produced anything tangible.
That they're kind of living off of the hearsays. And, you know, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and it's also like, in my opinion, having studied this and the people involved and the people who are backing the people involved and the cohesiveness of this group of people, who are kind of working together to do what they're doing. I don't know. They have a very good stick.
Yeah.
They've got a good group of people that can go out there and probably at the end of the day, some financial backers. Robert Bigelow comes to mind, Peter Thiel potentially. And so it's a, slick production, and it's always a constant kind of theme. And I know Gresh today had mentioned that, he and his wife had been affected. He didn't come out and say by the hitchhiker effect, but I'm sure that's what he's alluding to, given the fact that he's involved with the same group of people. I'm sure that will come into play, but it's just, again, it's a lot of stories. It's a lot of distrust of the government. It's a lot of weaponized. I really have a problem with the wording and the way that Jeremy Corbell continually over the years has come out with this. Why should we be weaponizing the study of looking at another life form? And, I also want to just say that clearly on the record, you have NASA officials, you've got government officials that are throwing down the hammer and saying, we've studied this, we've seen the evidence, there is no proof that extraterrestrials are here.
You are listening to the best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. Remember, you can hear full past episodes, see upcoming events, and order books of the authors we have on the show by going to ghostboxradio.com. Don't forget to like us over on Facebook, look us up at GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, and finally, please consider supporting me on Patreon. On Patreon, you can find me as GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We'll be back with another guest after the break. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
The best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
We are talking about the sounds Bigfoot makes, and you might be like, well, we haven't talked about any sounds Bigfoot made yet. And, honestly, Robert, I'm not quite sure how we're going to do this in the sense of we're going to play these, and I don't know if it's just like, does that sound right to you? And you're going to be like, yeah or no. I mean, but I think that they're interesting. I think they're interesting to just listen to, if that works for you.
It's fine. Yeah.
All right. He's just like, why am I here tonight? And it's a fair question. Now, there's a couple more things that have come through. Robert, when you go out and do your research in the field, do you create a gifting stump?
No, I haven't done that. I know what you're talking about and stuff, and I know people that have done that with their house. They've left stuff out in their house and stuff, but I do know some investigators have done that. I haven't done that.
We did it in Indiana, and we like Zanzi did. We didn't put out the chocolate or anything. We did have some stuff out there, but what we did have out there was a granola bar. It was still wrapped, and like she said, she had feathers and fancy rocks. We had marbles that were kind of balancing on the stump itself, and we went away for a couple hours. Now, earlier that evening, we were in a picnic area, and it's just like you said. We only had we didn't really travel far from the campsite. We went into the woods a little bit, but we kind of stuck to the campsite. And we had some Funyuns, a bag of Funyuns at a picnic table, and some raccoons came up and they took it and they ripped it apart, just like what you expect raccoons to do. The gifting stump, though, we left for a little bit, about 2 hours. We came back, and most of the stuff on the gifting stump was still there, except for the granola bar. And the granola bar, we found the wrapper on the floor, that's a floor, on the ground. And, like we talked about how the raccoons just tore apart the Funyun bag. This was not ripped apart. It looked literally like someone had the bar and they took their nail and went across the packaging like slid it open and took it out and put the wrapper on the ground, that marble I talked about was untouched. I mean, it was a very delicate operation.
Most of the time that I know investigators do it, they set up a trail cam or some kind of a recording device to keep an eye on the area where they put some gifts. And I know a couple times where they left like apples and peanut butter and stuff, and this stuff came up. Then again, they've had some raccoons and some other animals come up and get it. I always wanted to suspend an apple on a rope. Ooh. Where the raccoons and stuff couldn't get it.
Yeah.
I just haven't done it. I mean, I've talked to friends of mine, Nick and them, about doing it, and to be honest with you, I probably need to go ahead and start doing that, because I've talked about it a bunch of times, and then set up our trail cameras in areas where these things have been seen.
Yeah.
And that way, it's kind of, how would I say it? What else can grab an apple off of a rope?
And you can have that dangle pretty high because they're very tall. So yeah, you're right. And this and you could do it where the length between, if you did it off a limb and the rope was tall enough that, like to your point, the raccoons can't just shimmy down the rope to get the apple or whatever.
They're not that smart enough to do that.
No. No, I'm not that smart to do that.
I've seen people do similar, and the animals come up from the bottom and they try to jump up and get it, and to no avail, and then they just kind of give up and go off. But I've never seen them get smart enough to go up the tree and come down the rope to get it.
No. If you do that, please let me know. I'd love to know what you find with that. I think that's a fantastic idea.
You need to do that. I need to do that.
You do.
Like I said, me and the group I go out with, we've talked numerous times about doing it. I'll be honest, I don't know why we haven't done it.
Now
I'm at a loss right now, because now you're talking about it.
It's like do it. Just do it, Robert.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it this time.
Yeah, do it this time. And how often do you go out into the field?
Well, I haven't been in a long time, and because the weather down here in Florida has been extremely, extremely hot. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I have, I'll be honest with you, I have taken a step back a little from it to focus on my wife, because my wife has Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And she has been doing this furniture stuff, and I decided I wanted to help her, push, because she's been supporting me for a long time, and I just wanted to take a step back and support her.
Yeah. She does enjoy camping. She does enjoy going out there. She's a fantastic photographer. I'm not sure how much she really believes in all this stuff, because, we've seen some obvious hoaxing and some stories that are a little far-fetched. So she's on the border on that. She's a little bit more in the paranormal than she is in the cryptozoology, but she does go out with me, and she does keep an open mind. But she, if she doesn't think somebody's being truthful and stuff, she will call them out. When you're saying this, and when you're talking about that apple, and it's like, why haven't you done it yet? Robert, why haven't I had you on talking about paranormal and ufology? Because you're well versed in all of that as well. We never seem to talk about that.
I love all that stuff. The paranormal, ufology, the unexplained.
Yeah.
Missing people, the Bermuda Triangle. I love, that's, it's not just Bigfoot. Bigfoot seems to have been what it is, I enjoy going out in the woods, and I enjoy looking at this stuff, Bigfoot's an excuse to go out in the woods. Not saying I don't, I think there's something out there, bottom line. Mm-hmm. But I also like going out there and, going into an old abandoned house and stuff with my wife and stuff, and looking at stuff. And we do know all the paranormal groups down here in Florida.
Yeah.
And, I'll be honest with you, we've actually talked about, maybe going out and checking out some, paranormal places and stuff versus, doing the Bigfoot, especially when it's really hot,
You're in the swamp.
Go in the woods.
You're in the swamp. What are they called down there? Skunk apes, or?
They call it the skunk ape. I kind of, Well, I mean, it's traditionally called the skunk ape. Dave Shealy kind of,
Yeah.
popularized that term, but it was actually used a lot longer before he ever used it. I mean, it was called the Everglades ape.
Mm-hmm.
And some people just, never really associated it with Bigfoot till the Patterson film came out. And then people started, hey, we got one of those down here. And then a gentleman, last name Osborne, in 1971, when him and two other guys were out in the Big Cypress Swamp, saw it. And when they were interviewed, he pretty much animately said, it's a skunk ape.
Yeah.
So the name stuck. Some investigators don't like it. Ramona Clark Hibner in the 70s hated the term, and she actually called it the Yeti. She liked the term Yeti.
Yeah.
Some people refer to it as Bigfoot. Some people refer to it as a swamp ape. I'll be honest. It's the skunk ape because that's pretty much people refer to it down here in Florida. I prefer the term swamp ape.
Yeah, I like
It's got a better ring to it, because up in Texas they call it the wood apes. So here in Florida we have the swamp apes.
And one thing I forgot, I never really talk about when I retell the story that I had 100,000 times. But one thing I never talk about, and was thinking of the term skunk ape, was the smell that we encountered as well in Kentucky. The kind of the dank urine, very, and like it's just it was very potent. Even when we didn't see that creature, it was like all of a sudden it was just around us, that odor that just kind of raised our alarm of like, okay, what is going on here?
Believe it or not, this animal, and I'm not just talking the Florida one, there's reports of the animal, the Sasquatch over in California, Oregon, and it's been known to give off a smell too. People have known a very pungent smell. The Honey Island swamp monster, the Falk monster, again, people have noticed this pungent smell. It's a big hairy animal going through this woods, and there's different theories. I mean, I have talked to people that have seen it and didn't smell it.
Yeah.
I've talked to people that have smelt it and didn't see it, and I've seen, last one, of course, people have seen it and smelled it. So it's kind of, well,
it could be anything.
It's been known to give off a pungent smell.
Now, what is the name of that site? Because Marcy's asking the question. She's like, I've heard that there's Bigfoots in Sierra National Park. Has anyone investigated there? My guess is that if someone knows that there is a creature, they've investigated it. And there is a website that you have talked about before that kind of tracks where people have seen sightings of these creatures.
Well, the best one is Matt Moneymaker's site, the BRFO. He has a very, very comprehensive and probably the best one database out there of sightings, not only in the United States, but all over the world too.
Right.
And he does have a team of investigators that goes out and when a report comes in, and they'll go take a look at, unfortunately, some of the reports that come in, the person, is telling a report of something he saw like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's kind of hard to investigate it. But, like I said, the BRFO is probably, in my opinion, one of the better sites out there when it comes to, doing research and looking. Because I tell people, when you're going out to an area, go to the BRFO, see if there's been any activity in the area that you're going before you go out there.
Do you feel that it's, and we're going to get to some sounds here in a second, but do you feel that it is, if you're looking and you don't see a report of a sighting, do you feel that it's maybe not a place that you should go and look, or do you think that that's more of like a kind of a lost opportunity and that you should go and check it out?
Me, I only go to where I've been told or read where there's been some activity, because there's a reason why the animal's out there. Now, you can find an area close by where this, there may be some sightings, and you look over and say, well, look at this wooded area over here. Maybe it's, gone over there. I have done that. I've actually looked over at this area and say, well, look, there's a creek going through here. I wonder if this animal is traveling the creek. It was seen going in this direction, And so let's go see if it actually, let's see if we can head it off at the pass and see if it actually comes down in this area,
Absolutely.
So, I mean, yeah, you got to kind of do a little bit of detective work, or kind of trying to think where you anticipate it, the next sighting might be.
Which is the fun. Which is the fun part, right? I mean, that's I mean, that's the best part. We're going to need to head to break here in a second, but I want to play a roar, and these are from woodape.org. Just as I think that this, I mean, I'm sure there's other sites, maybe they're better sites. I do not know. If you know of good sites out there, folks, let me know. But I looked, and these are well documented sites. There's a lot of information about these audio recordings. This recording from 2017 is actually of two individuals and was recorded not long after the team had loudly broadcasted playbacks of great ape vocalizations. The roars may well have been intended to defend territory throughout intimidation. Robert, I'm going to play this clip right now. Hopefully you all can hear it. Well, that's frightening. I'm going to play it one more time. I hope everyone can hear it. If you can't hear it, I know you can hear it over the air, but if you can't hear it through our streaming, let me know. So what do you think of that, Robert?
Sounds like an eagle screeching to me.
So you're thinking that it's not a creature, not a Sasquatch?
Well, based on some of the recordings that I feel might be some validity to it.
You are listening to the best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. Remember, you can hear full past episodes, see upcoming events, and order books of the authors we have on the show by going to ghostboxradio.com. Don't forget to like us over on Facebook, look us up at GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, and finally, please consider supporting me on Patreon. We have a special, unique audio content that you'll not find anywhere else, plus special episodes. On Patreon, you can find me as GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.